Hey gang, it's Tim. I want to talk about arguably one of the biggest growth levers that you can pull in your agency. And that is creating an incredible account management function. Now, account management is actually one of the most misunderstood functions in an agency. Most agencies, as they start, are really thinking that the account manager is there to make sure that the client is happy. And that remains a goal throughout, regardless of how big your agency is. But what agency owners don't really understand is that the account manager is not there to just create a happy client. What they are really there to do is to conduct two orchestras at the same time. They're conducting the client orchestra and the agency orchestra. And what I mean by that is the act of managing an account has a lot of facets to it. You have to make sure that the projects are done as expected. And hopefully you have a project manager working with you. And by the way, account managers and project managers are not the same. A project manager only works inside your agency. An account manager works in your agency and in front of the client. The account manager really needs to understand the client. They need to understand business changes. They need to understand budget changes. They need to understand messaging, their promotional issues, if there are changes in profitability or cost of acquisition or inventory levels or sales close rates or whatever. The account manager has to be really adept at pulling that information out, because that set of notes helps the account manager conduct the agency side. So a change in the client's environment, let's imagine that the media cost has gone up and close rates have gone down. So maybe suddenly we're in a place where our agreed upon cost of acquisition is no longer the same profit driver that it once was. The account manager now has to take that information, bring it inside of the agency, and connect with all of the other functions, be it a strategist or a subject matter expert or executive team, whatever, to get an understanding of how we need to reallocate resources and insight and technique and approaches to make sure that the client is getting what they need. And when that change is made inside of the agency, that plan, that conglomeration of music needs to be brought to the client so they can listen to it and respond. Now, some of the other things that an account manager is going to do is decide which of the agency side musicians are going to get a solo. Does the subject matter expert, like the Facebook media person, do they need to come into a meeting? Do they need to have a visit with the strategist? Does an executive need to come in? Who knows? But that is in the purview of the account manager understanding its orchestra and understanding the music that the client needs. On the client side, alongside those two changes, a good account manager really needs to be listening to how loudly the client is applauding. Is it time for an upsell? Is it time to suggest something new? Is it time to suggest a reallocation of budgets? And the account manager really needs to deeply understand kind of the economics and politics of the client. Conversely, the account manager really needs to understand the resource allocation, profitability needs, and ability of the agency so that they can conduct both orchestras so that they are playing music that goes together and is not cacophonous. And the account manager really needs to be in a position of some authority and some autonomy, because they need to have the authority to ask those hard questions of the clients. They also need the authority to tell the agency what it needs to do in order to match the music that the client wants to hear. And they have to have the autonomy to make decisions. Is this a good time to offer an upsell? Is this a good time to offer access to a subject matter expert? Is this a good time to suggest a reallocation? Is this a good time to suggest that this messaging isn't right? Is this a good time to suggest whatever? So the account manager needs to be finely attuned to the response that the client is giving to the music that the agency is playing. And on the other side, it has to be finely tuned to the agency's response to the music the client is asking for, because it may be that because of economic changes or because of platform changes or whatever, suddenly that client is no longer a good fit. Or that client went from being a fine client to a great client that we need to invest more into and expand our services. And the account manager really needs to understand the capabilities of the agency and also have a really good idea of the agency economics so they do not suggest something that doesn't benefit both the client and the agency. And so even though they are client facing, the account manager is in this very strategic position where they are collecting the notes from the agency and playing that music for the client. They're collecting the response to that music from the agency and delivering new sheet music to the agency orchestra. So they are really conducting to make sure that everything is in sync, and they have the most insight into what's happening at the client. How happy are they? What are their limitations? What are their opportunities? And so the account manager isn't just someone who has a weekly or biweekly meeting and goes through reporting. The account manager is someone who conducts a beautiful relationship between two parties that can benefit one another.